Okay, so let's go ahead and review that box. You're probably dying to look at it. Actually, I'm sure by now you've already been into it. But let's go grab your box and let me walk through each of the components that's included, and you can follow along and name each of the parts as we take them out of the box. Welcome to the first ever virtual hack Sioux Falls. Hopefully it's the last virtual hack Sioux Falls we ever have. But I did kind of want to get started, and some of the stuff we can do remotely, so I thought we would go ahead and get started there. Now, I know I already covered a lot of these components in one of our kind of introduction videos, the promo videos, if you will, but because we're doing this virtual, I thought I would now go through each of them now that you have the components in your hands, and we can talk about each of them as well. Now, I know about half of you have already taken one of our Hack Sioux Falls projects, and for you, a lot of this will be kind of repeat or kind of a refresher if you haven't done anything in a while. But the other half that are completely brand new, this will all be new to you, and I'll do my best to explain things virtually, and I will be available to talk via a Zoom meeting as well. But I think everybody will have a good time. It's a cool, interesting project, and I think there's a lot of interesting things that you guys can build here while you're at home during the quarantine. So let's go ahead and just jump in and start talking about some of these components. Now in your tote, you should see all these things. There may be a few extra things that I throw in as well once I get those put together. But let's talk through some of the important ones. The first thing over here, we've got our Arduino Uno and we've got our motor board. So these are our main kind of brains behind the operation. This is our kit that's going to be for building a little Bluetooth controlled car. Here's an example of what that's going to look like in the end. And then up here, I've got just some of the smaller components in this little Ziploc bag, including our breadboard and a little tray. This, if you're not familiar, is just a little battery. It's a little rechargeable battery, kind of like what you might see for a cell phone, but we're going to use this for different components of our project. USB cable for our Arduino Uno. This little guy hanging out over here is our Bluetooth module. This is going to be what we can connect our phone to in order to talk to that car that I showed a second ago. And this is just something that Stack provided. It's a little mini USB plug. This we don't have a direct use for as part of the individual projects here, but it will come into play when we do eventually get together and do our soldering part of the project. But I went ahead and included it right now as well. In the kit, I may include the soldering project as a separate little component. Some of you may already have a soldering iron or want to get a soldering iron, in which case I want you to go ahead and have that so that you can go ahead and move through that part of the project as well. So now let's open this bag up here and talk about the individual components in there. Inside that bag are all of these little components, and these are just parts that we're going to do as part of the intro, and we're going to talk through each of these components. One of the things is going to be some resistors. Here are those resistors. These are 220 ohm resistors. Since we're doing this project virtually, I might dive a little bit deeper into some of these components and shoot some videos and give you guys a little bit of resources. That way, if you want to learn, you can. If you want to skip it, you sure can as well. This little guy right here is a fun little component. It's a little tiny red laser, so kind of like what you would see in a cat toy or other toys. This runs off of 5 volts, so this you can plug into the Arduino Uno and control. You can turn it on and off, for example, and as part of your car, this might be an interesting thing that you want to add. But anyway, it's just a little laser. They're really cheap. They're about 10 cents a piece. I think they're a lot of fun, so I always include them. This right here is nothing fancy. It's just a regular old little coin cell battery. I go ahead and include these so that you can test things like LEDs so that you can see which direction they go. So for example, drop my battery. Now I can't pick it back up. There we go. So for example, we can test this blue LED and we can just put the positive lead over the top and the negative on the bottom, and you can see it lights up. This is handy just so that you can kind of see some of these LEDs like this one. You don't know what color it is until you actually plug it in as it goes flying across the table, just because it's white and you can't really tell. This one's a color change LED, so it's got a little chip on it, and it's going to cycle through the colors. Now I'm going to include a whole bunch of different LEDs in the kit just so that everybody has a whole bunch. They're really cheap. Some of them you can tell these are some of the more older style where you've got the colors that you can see. I forget the names of these LEDs. And then I've got some of the newer ones, which are just clear. And these ones shine a lot brighter. And this is a white one. And they're a lot of fun to use as well. But then some of them you can't quite tell what the color is until you plug them in. These might actually all be white. But I have some other colors. Here's another color change one. as well. And you can use these as part of your project or for other things too. But anyway, that's what's included. I think all three of these are color change. Yep. And then I've also got this little switch or clicky clicky. It's got a little click on it. And this one I did actually solder these leads onto it so that it fits nicely into the breadboard so you can wire it up. And we've got a couple projects where we use those switches and as well kind of walking through some of the circuitry. And then this guy here, as I mentioned, is a breadboard. This is what's used to help set up some initial sample circuits. It's just much easier than trying to solder things together. And as you can see with things like the switch, we can just stick them in and then we can put some wires in. Actually, I don't have any wires here, but I will include wires as part of the project for everybody. And then LEDs can sit in as well. And then you can go ahead and just build up a simple circuit, and then we can plug that into the Arduino Uno and then be able to control it on the breadboard. It allows us to change things around, so we can move components, we can take them off, we can put new ones on, we can rearrange them however we want. Now this laser, I did put some connectors on it, so we can actually plug that into the breadboard and power it as well. Like I said, this is going to be 5 volts, so this will need to actually power it from the Uno, which we'll do here in one of the videos as well. So anyway, those are the components inside. Let's go ahead and switch over and talk about one of the programs that we're going to use on the programming side, and then I'll show you how that works with the Arduino Uno.